The 1998 AFL Premiership season, proudly brought to you by Ultratune, Sip and Save, The Advertiser, Amy, and Mitre 10.
Well, that picture may show a pretty balmy harbour city. I've got some news for you, though. El Nino has been at work, and it has thrown a cat amongst the pigeons because it's been raining heavily here in Sydney for at least the past hour, but it hasn't stopped the crowds. Another monster crowd here at the SCG. Despite the rain, despite the threat of thunder and lightning, they are pouring in for what has turned out to be another knockout final. 5 teams left in just a couple of hours, though. There'll only be 4 to fight it out for the 1998 flag. Yes, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the SCG. As I said, another knockout final. This time it's the Sydney Swans. They love close ones up here, especially finals, and the Adelaide Crows. But the conditions have not been at all kind. In the Adelaide rooms, well, it's going to be interesting. They brought up 22 players, and they've got a number of talls in this side. Is that going to have a disastrous effect on the side in these conditions? Time will tell on that. Sydney Swans, on the other hand, also preparing themselves for another knockout final. Tony Lockett kicked only one last week against Wakeland, who was superb there. You can see Tony. Troy Cook coming into this lineup too, and he will be determined to put on a marvellous effort tonight. Joining me once again, one of the legends of the game, and Leigh Matthews. Disappointing, Leigh, about the conditions. We can do nothing about that, but we're certainly going to play a part.
Absolutely. I was just doing some calculation to how many marking players are in either side, and I reckon the Crows have probably got 6, maybe 7 players that really won't be able to mark the ball if it's really wet and damp. I think the Swans maybe have only got 3 or 4, so I think these conditions are probably going to suit the home side a little more.
In other words, you're saying it's been a great evener-upper.
Well, I think for Swans, I mean, I must admit I tipped Crows going into the game, but I think in these conditions, I certainly would change my tip to the Swans. I think their side is more suited to a wet weather slog, which looks like what we are going to have this evening.
Yes, there you can see expecting an overnight low of 15, so it's certainly not cold, but the rain looks as though it has set in. Plugger booted only 1 last week. As I said, Wakeland did an excellent job on him. He finished up going down the ground. Yeah. He's got an interesting record, though, hasn't he, as a Saint and as a Swan against Adelaide.
It's just quite amazing, isn't it, how you have he's averaging in the St Kilda Guernsey against the Crows 5.4 per game, as we see there, but in the Swans Guernsey only 2.8. I'm not exactly sure the reason for that, but maybe it's just as Plugger's got a little bit older, as he has with the Swans, has not had as many big days, and maybe had a few downers against the Crows.
Well, the word is that Mr Pittman is going to get the job on him, coming back into the Crows lineup. They've got 3 premiership players coming back into this Crows side tonight. So we're just about set to go. Don't worry about the forecast. Rain, thunder and lightning. Just buckle up, enjoy it in the lounge room. We're going to be in for a hot night here at the SCG. Welcome back to the Sydney Cricket Ground. Sydney Swans players just coming out. Tony Lockett was the first one down the race. He would have seen the rain, he would have seen the mud. And then came the Adelaide Crows. Will Darren Jarman start at full board? That could be an interesting question. Plenty of height in this lineup. but it's going to make it for a real scraggy affair, but I'm sure a very, very close one. Also joining Leigh Matthews and myself tonight, Bruce McAvaney, and a warm welcome to Jason Dunstall. Boys, good evening.
Thank you, Sandy. Good
and
to be here.
Jason, I've got to preface it with an apology because we look back on these two sides, and in particular this ground, close matches. There are 3 finals. They've all been decided by less than the kick. You watched one with Hawthorn lying on your back in the dressing room.
It wasn't a great one. Back in 1996, we actually got beaten by a point, but that was the first time I did my knee. And it was very difficult to sit there and lie on the bench and watch such a close game come down to the wire. Darren Creswell took a mark in the square at the end and kicked the winner.
All right, boys. Well, with Leigh, let's have a look at the sides. Before we do that, we might just have a look at their earlier meeting, which was in round 14. The Adelaide Crows have a very good record coming to this ground, so that holds no fears at all for them whatsoever. Let's have a look now at those scores from round 14, and you may remember some of these highlights.
After round 14, the Crows had just beaten the Swans and pushed them back down the ladder 3 runs when Rodney Eade offered this.
I really think Adelaide are still the team to beat. I think really the skill level they've got some super skilled players, and they've got some real talent, and they play with that intensity. They're going to be very hard for any team to beat.
The coach of the most accurate team in front of goal went on to say,
there's not many blokes in their side that can't hit a teammate from 40 metres away. Yeah, I think they're as good a threat as anybody to win the flag.
Blight was having none of that. Back-to-back flags brought a strong retort.
Yeah, I've never been involved in it. I wouldn't have included it, and that's perfectly honest.
But strong finishes by the Swans were on his mind.
And particularly up here, they've had some barnstorming finishes.
Like a 6-point win in 96.
Any score to put Sydney in front, but a goal would be more than handy.
Then getting into a grand final after the siren.
What a finish. Any score. Otherwise, we play extra time. Lockett, the most important kick of his career. Any score will do. He kicks.
And last week, half a metre from defeat.
Winmar played it beautifully. Still Nicky's there. Still Nicky's there. He's just missed it.
Tonight, someone runs out of luck, while the other advance 7 days, flying the national football flag.
Well, if this one is as close as any one of those 3 tonight, Bruce, we're going to be in for a clinker.
I think it'll be close, but I agree with Leigh. I think the Swans now have shortened up because of the conditions.
Now, this last game they played up here had fond memories for me because I suggested they played with a good football. And on talking footy, I was completely boo-hooed. Jace, is there good and bad footies or not? Or was I just mistaken with that theory?
I think you're spot on, Leigh, without a shadow of a doubt.
Actually, there's been a lot of talk, Leigh, this weekend about this game. There's been a lot of psychological ploys going on. Blighty started very early in when he said goodbye to Tony Modra.
Yeah.
If you wanted to ignite a flame under the side, probably not a bad way to do it.
Well, that was an interesting strategy. I guess the theory was that there was going to be a lot of publicity when Modra was left out of the team, so do it on Monday or Tuesday and get that, distracting publicity potentially out of the way. That's the only reason one would think of doing it on Monday as opposed to the normal selection on Thursday night.
Boys coming across for the national anthem. David Pittman, what a key player he's going to be. And, well, there you can see Tony Lockett with Paul Roos. Jason, should they go down, we'll be saying farewell to Roosie.
Yeah, look, he's had an outstanding career. He's been superb for so many years. The experience that he's provided to the Sydney team up here has been, I think, invaluable. And certainly his experience tonight will also count, even though he might spend the entire game on the ground.
So let's begin official proceedings now with the national anthem about to commence here at the Sydney Cricket Ground. It's not far off being a full house. Our master of ceremonies is Craig Willis.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Australian Football Coca-Cola welcome you to the SCG for the second semi-final in the final series for 1998. Would you now please be upstanding for the national anthem to be performed by Tim Draxel.
For we are young and free, with golden soil and well
reached his 150th. That's a fantastic achievement for him. Playing his 100th game as Troy Luff. Has had a wonderful season and recently became a dad, and playing his 50th is Matthew Nix. So well done to those three boys.
Jason, what about the effect, the weather on Lockett at full forward?
Well, certainly that's going to take away a lot of his effectiveness, and I think his ability to probably win the game for Sydney. And it's unfortunate, but it's just going to be a hard grind for the big fella tonight.
It's interesting, you know, they do happen to have a side that doesn't look to have too many real tall marking players. You look at Lockett at full forward, probably Stafford in the ruck chase, but most of the other players, maybe Duncan, who is a sprawling player, but most of their other players are sort of second effort ground level players as well, aren't they?
Well, you're certainly going to need that because the majority of the game will be played at ground level. The ball will be hitting the deck a lot. It's just a matter of getting the body behind the ball and pushing it forward.
I wonder if they had a choice now whether Adelaide would have Wren, Marsh and Pittman all in the side. I guess they picked Pittman specifically for the role at full-back, although I guess you never know till they line up.
They certainly look a little bit tall up front with Robert and Marsh, also Caven up there. I mean, we might see a change very early on, maybe a couple of the smaller players come on.
Well, I guess that's where the 20-man interchange is all about. 22-man team, I should say, but I reckon a couple of big blokes from each side will probably be on the bench for most of the night.
Two selections, gentlemen. Firstly, Jason, what do you think?
In a tight one, I think the one thing that the weather will ensure us is a good, close, tight contest. I'll go with the home side, the Sydney Swans.
Leigh?
I'm going to jump my midweek selection, which was the Crows. I'm going to jump onto the home team.
Brucey?
I'm from South Australia, Sandy. I'm sticking. There's a bit of symmetry about tonight. 3 South Australians and 3 Hawks in the telecast.
Yes, well, as I live very close to you, here we go. This is a knockout final, remember. The loser says farewell, and the only thing they've got to look forward to is pre-season.
And Sandy McLeod has gone to the opposite end of the field from which he started last week. He's gone into the forward attacking goal squad.